עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ויאמרו
Boker Tov, and we welcome the Field family to Mount Masada. And we can't start the service without giving a brief introduction. So Caroline, if you were awake in the van as you were coming down, you don't have to answer if you were or not. Did you notice we're kind of in the middle of nowhere? I mean, it's all desert all around you. And you've probably heard about Herod the Great. So actually, Masada has different time frames. And you've also heard of Maccabees, Hanukkah story, because one of the Maccabees founded the place, made it into a fortress. We don't know a lot about it. It wasn't Judah. You know, that's the one you're most familiar with. There's a whole, you know what a dynasty is? A line of kings after Judah. They were all Maccabees. They were related to each other, like father-son, or brothers. And possibly Judah's brother was the one who originally built this into a palace fortress. But it's Herod that did most of the building around here. And you did Caesarea probably. And you were already at the Kotel then, Western Wall. You heard about, this is not a place to discuss Herod, who's worth a lot of discussion in and by himself, but he built it up. So he has he has several palaces in the desert. This is the most famous, probably because of the second part, which I'm getting to. Now, he built it up, but it's the Zealot part of the story that is the most famous. You may have heard about it. You've been here before.
Yes.
And I think you have a problem. But I want to just briefly describe it and then tell you you don't have a problem. Caroline, the Zealots who were up here during the rebellion, when the temple was destroyed in Jerusalem, that you learned about. Okay, Herod's temple, the last phase of the temple is gone. The city is burnt. You probably talked about that. There are survivors. There are people from maybe Qumran with the Dead Sea Scrolls. When you turned around by Jericho there coming south, that's where probably pointed out, that's where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. So people come here, refugees, so to speak, and if this temple is destroyed in the year 70, which is more than 1900 plus years ago, for another 3 years, people survive on top of Masada. Okay, the Josephus, you heard the name, the great historian, says there were 967 zealots. Here's your problem. Listening? I can think of a lot of places in Israel where they all lived. But yet your parents brought you to a place, they all died. Betty, we came for nothing.
No, they were heroes.
They were heroes. Caroline, you noticed the beautiful visitor center. It's about 13 years old. You were last here 16 years ago.
Yes.
You did the old cable, it was all shacks.
Yeah.
Shacks and 40 people in the cable car. Now it's 80.
Yeah.
The whole system was changed, and the new visitor center. Do you know what UNICEF is? We know on Halloween they raise money for kids. One of these United Nations organizations. There's another UN organization for World Cultural Heritage Sites, like pyramids in Egypt, Eiffel Tower. I think you have one of the tallest buildings in the world in Chicago, probably, or Empire State Building. Masada's on the list. So you see, if we're on this list of hundreds of World Cultural Heritage Sites, there must be something important that happened here. Something that's worth coming to learn about or to have your ceremony here. So you don't have a problem. I scared her for nothing. Okay? Now, the Zealots are here for 3 years, some scholars say for 4 years. There is no fight because there is that mass suicide, and Masada was only rediscovered, quote unquote, like in the 19th century, like in the 1860s or something like that. There's some explorer that's here. And it's become today probably one of the most visited sites in the whole country. Western Wall, places in Jerusalem, but this is near the top of the list, of course.
Ay diri die diri die 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 die. Ay diri die diri die. Ay diri die diri die 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 die. Ay diri die diri die. Ay die 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 die. Ay die 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 die. Ay diri die diri die. Ay die 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 die. I diddy die, diddy die. You can join in. I diddy die, diddy die, 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 die. I diddy die, diddy die. I diddy die, diddy die, 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 die. I diddy die, diddy die. I die, 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 die. I diddy die, diddy die.
And now we're going to do the Talit blessing. So those that have the Talit will rise in place. And we will do the bracha, the blessing together. Is that an Israeli Talit?
Yes, it is.
Where's your
Okay. Safed or Jerusalem or?
Yeah, Safed.
Sfat, okay. Open it up, Caroline. Let me see here. Okay. Let me help you. Let's going to have the nicest talits in Sfat. In Safed. Okay. So, since you only have the last few words of the blessing, you'll just say, we'll all say together. You can see it's on mine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit. Now, I'm going to help you with this. This is going to go. The band is right by the neck. This is balanced out. That's perfect. Okay. Sammy is coming up for the first reading. You may be seated. Please take your booklet with you. Front cover. Front cover. Yeah.
Do you think that the words of prayer, as you say them as you go up to God, it is not the words themselves that ascend, it is rather the burning desire in your heart that rises like smoke towards heaven? If your prayer consists of only words and letters and does not contain your heart's desire, how can it rise up, O God, to God?
Thank you. You may be seated. So, Sammy, we hope that your prayers and all of our prayers, and especially Caroline's prayers, will be sincere from the heart, and these are the prayers that rise up to God in heaven. So, Caroline, page 2 at the top. Please come up. Anne Frank diary. Are you familiar with the diary by chance? You may have read it. You know the story of this young girl. She was caught, there's a movie, she was caught up in the Holocaust, and unfortunately the only one that came back was Otto the father when the diary was found under the floorboards. Have you been to the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam?
Yes.
My granddaughter was there this past summer. Had to wait for 3 hours. You can imagine I was there 40, 50 years ago. But this is one of the most famous passages from the diary. It's really a wonder.
Should I read it?
Yes.
Okay.
Really a wonder.
It's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all my ideals because they seem so absurd and impossible to carry out. Yet I keep them because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. I simply can't build up my hopes on a foundation consisting of confusion, misery, and death. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I hear the ever-approaching thunder, which will destroy us too. I can feel the suffering of millions, and yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think it will all come out all right, that this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out.
Good. Caroline, please take a seat. Go back to your seat. And you will notice as we go through the service, I like to ask questions, Caroline. There's nothing difficult because there's no correct answers, or whatever you say is correct. But I want you to look at the third line, what Anne writes, where she says, in spite of everything, I still believe, I still believe that people are really good at heart. True or false or what? That is a difficult question. Very. Remember the setting. The Nazis are looking for all the Jews and hiding. They're in hiding, right? They're in this attic apartment. And they, whether it's 2.5 years or something, they hole out. And she can't even see, the whole sky. When they open the skylight or the roof, she can't even, it's some of it is blurred or blocked. But eventually someone tells the Gestapo where to come for the family, and the family is taken away. People are really good at heart. What do you think?
I don't know.
Well, just briefly, because we're not having a whole philosophical discussion, but maybe, go ahead.
I think yes, because anything that someone does, they probably have a reason.
Okay. But maybe she meant because you've heard of this Assad up in Syria, where 150,000 people have died in the civil war of like 3 or 4 years or something. Or Saddam Hussein, remember that dictator from Iraq before the United States went in to try to make order over there. So I'm not sure, maybe she meant that most people are good at heart most of the time. Maybe she meant that. You know who Hitler was? Who could say that Hitler was good at heart? Yeah. So it's a difficult question. But you see, she had so much optimism, so much confidence, more than anyone else that I've ever known, that she maybe really believed it. And that's a possibility. Okay, but what does she say at the end? Look at that, Caroline. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, my values, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out. She couldn't do it. She never came back, unfortunately. She would have been a best-selling author, probably. But she would hope, Caroline, that young people like you and your brother would carry on where she left off. So we certainly hope that Anne's words will be an inspiration for everybody. And now we'll sing. Betty's going to lead us, How Good and Pleasant It Is for People to Dwell Together in Unity, and I think you know this one, Hine Ma Tov.
Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
Andrew, please come up if you would. This is a man of religion. Caroline at the bottom, his name is Abraham Heschel. And I heard him speak. He's deceased now, but when I was a student in the 60s in New York, early 70s, when I was ordained, he gave the message to the new rabbis. And he was a philosopher. And this is from his book about the land of Israel. You can ask your rabbi. Our dean, one of our deans just gave a Heschel course online, which I took part of. And they're very fascinating. So, what is so precious?
What is so precious about the land of Israel? What is the magnetic quality of its atmosphere? The land is a text. Here you are illiterate unless you remember words of Scripture. It is a land where the Bible is at home. This tiny corner is the spot where the most sublime moments of encounter between God and our people took place, where the most precious visions were born. We must seek to understand Israel reborn in the light of history from the perspective of time. It is a land where not a spot is visible that is not reflecting an event, a moment. Just to be in the land is a religious experience. It is a country where a full Jewish life can be lived in accord with the tradition and conscience, where the Sabbath fills the streets, not only the homes, where the language is Hebrew. Eretz Yisrael is a prelude and anticipation. This is part of our exaltation, to witness the birth of a land of the Bible, a land that was dead for nearly 2,000 years, and now a land that sings.
Thank you. You may be seated, Dad. Caroline, there's a lot of food for thought in this reading. I just want to share a few brief thoughts with you. Look at the fourth paragraph, if you would. And notice it says, it is a land where not a spot is visible that is not reflecting an event, a moment. Now, your good friend and guide, Ori, who's been taking you around for more than a week now, did you notice, it's been unconscious, wherever he takes you, he has something to say? Did you notice that? You know, his knowledge is, like all Israeli guides, is vast. And it might be a panorama, it might be a wall, it might be a house or a shrine or whatever it might be. And should I tell you a professional secret? What would happen? You ask Ori a question, and most of the answers he knows, but sometimes he doesn't know. So what do we? I told you I'm a guide too. What do we do? Kind of. We might fudge it a little bit or make it up or something. But I don't think Ori would do that. Okay. But you notice it's not only what's above ground; it's what's below ground. The land is so vast. There's so many different levels, so many different ways to take everything in, and you don't quite see that on TV when they talk about what's going on here, the politics, etc. But you've seen it with your own eyes, and I hope you've had just to be in the land is a religious experience. Like your bat mitzvah ceremony we're having today. It's not only an experience in all kinds of other ways, but religiously what we're doing now. Don't tell your rabbi what I know I'll be on video here. You see, Caroline, I always say that 2 weeks in Israel is worth 4 years of Sunday school, if not more. Because you see it, it comes alive, and that's the important thing. It is a country where the Sabbath fills the streets. Did you notice last night how quiet it was? No horns, no traffic jams, and so on. It was the shuk was probably crowded on a Friday. Everything is calm and relaxed, and very special atmosphere in Jerusalem. So I also hope that you took that in. So, Mom, Lauren, please come up for top of 3. Hope you consider yourself a pilgrim, not a tourist. You've probably been to Orlando, places like that. Yeah, you've been there? Caroline, you've been to Disney World? Yeah, but you've noticed this is not that type of trip. This is a totally different experience. The pilgrims had 15 psalms from the book of Psalms as they came up to Jerusalem to the ancient temple. This is one of the most famous. One of them, I rejoiced when they...
Okay. I rejoiced when they said to me, "We are going to the house of the Eternal." Our feet stood inside your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem built up, a city knit together, to which tribes would make pilgrimage, the tribes of the Eternal, as was enjoined upon Israel, to praise the names of the Eternal. There the thrones of judgment stood, thrones of the house of David. Pray for the well-being of Jerusalem. May those who love you be at peace. May there be well-being within your ramparts, peace in your citadels. For the sake of my kin and friends, I pray for your well-being. For the sake of the house of the Eternal, our God, I seek your good.
Thank you. You may be seated. Caroline, please come up for the Elu Devarim. These are duties. I have it here too.
Can I do it from here?
Yeah, fine. Okay. First, you're going to do this blessing that okay. Okay. Yes, do that.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitchanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Okay.
Elu devarim she'ein lahem shi'ur, she'adam ohel peirotehem, ba'olam hazeh, v'hakeren kayemet lo la'olam haba, ve'elu hein. There are obligations without measure whose rewards too are without measure. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving at the house of study early morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, rejoicing with the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial and comforting the grieving, praying with devotion, and making peace where there is strife. V'talmud Torah keneged kulam, but the study of Torah encompasses them all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Caroline, the reason that my colleagues and I, when we put this booklet together, like probably 25 years ago, I wanted this particular piece. I imagine you have many friends that are also being bar and bat mitzvah. It's your year. Is that year? Some weekends there's 2 or 3. You have to, a lot of chauffeuring and driving, and you have to decide which party or which services to go to. I understand that. But you've heard many a rabbi talk about this is a time of transition, this is a time of passage where you leave behind. You can say ciao, you can say goodbye to your childhood, and you're entering a new stage of life, like adulthood. In Herod's day, Herod the Great, if you lived to be 30, that was old. So if you got to be 13, 14 years old, that was half of your life. Okay, so you were an adult. Today, you're going to live to, I just heard someone, an actuary, tell me the other day, in Israel it's 84. Women live to 84, men to 79 or something. You're going to live a long life. So can I call you a young adult? But a young adult you are. Now, Caroline, many rabbis would say that the ultimate value in Judaism is Torah study, the last one. Not all, but many. So, assuming that is correct, what would you rank as number 2? Whatever you say is right, because there's no numbers there. One of them, I think, is of particular importance after Torah study. What am I referring to? Take a look at the list. It's at the bottom of your page. What am I talking about? Maybe your mom will whisper in your ear because she may know what I have in mind. I think I heard what she said. Honoring one's father and mother, who make so many things possible for you and your brother. So I certainly hope that you are deeply appreciative of everything they've made possible to have this great trip at this beautiful time of year. In Minnesota, it was snowing the other day. Maybe where you
Pretty
live.
lousy in Chicago too.
So look at this. How can you compare? No comparison. Okay. We rise for the call to worship, and we face in the direction of Jerusalem, the holy city, to the northwest. Baruch hu et Adonai ha-mevorach, Baruch Adonai ha-mevorach le'olam va'en. You may be seated. Caroline is coming up with the creation of the Yotzer from your book. Please come up. Let me see where you have it there. That's correct. Okay, go ahead.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, hameir la'aretz v'ladarim alecha barachamim, uftuvo mechadesh bechol yom, tamid maaseh v'reishit, ma rabu maasecha Adonai, kulam bechochma asita mal'a haaretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, al me'orei or sha'asita, yefa arucha selah, or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'neilcha kulanu Mehera Laoro. Baruch Ata Adonai Yotzer Hamaorot.
Amen.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevo Malchuto Leolam
Ve'ahavta.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha b'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha vehayu letot afot bein einechu ukshartam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskeru va'atzitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitam kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lehiyot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Thank you. You may be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Gaal Yisrael. We rise again for the Tefillah, for the Amida, page 5. Caroline is coming up again. For the Avot, Imahot, and the Gvurot. Okay, we will. Where are we there? That's correct. Okay, Adonai.
Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avotenu Ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak Ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora El Olyom Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Chanei Ha'akol Ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot Umevi Geula Livnei V'Nechem Lema'an Shemo Ve'achava Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah.
Okay, doing the next one. Atah Gibor and Olam.
Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai Mechaye Hakol Atah Rav le'oshia Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem Mechalkel chayim v'chesed Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim Somech noflim v'rofeh holim Umatir asurim Umechayem emunato Lishenei afar Micha mocha ba'al gevurot Umito malach Melech memit Umechaye Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechaye hakol.
Amen. Please remain standing on page 6. I'll continue with the Kedusha, adding the verses for Shabbat. נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב ביד נביאך וקרא זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו כבודו מלא עולם משותף שונים זה לזה איה מקום כבודו לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu, hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu, vehu Yashminu berachamav shenit le'nei kol chai, liot lachem le'elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון. לדור ודור הללויה, לדור ודור נגיד לך לנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך עלינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ואין, כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה. ברוך אתה לאדוני האל הקדוש. Please be seated. Sammy's coming up. He's going to remain standing. You've been waiting patiently for your part, and you're going to read, and we're going to answer you responsively. The top of page 7, oh, fill our minds.
Oh, fill our minds with knowledge and our hearts with wisdom.
Praise be the mind that unifies all creation.
Remind us of the best that is in us.
Praise be the will that gives us power to choose our way.
Help us to feel the anguish that afflicted and oppressed.
Praise be the heart that inspires in us
A vision of justice and love.
Make us bring knowledge and skill to help the infirm.
Praise be the power that brings healing to the sick.
Teach us to stand in awe before the mystery of being.
Praise be the one who is present in the miracle of prayer. Thank you. You may be seated.
ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת כולם נגבעו וסרגו מטובך ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. Amen.
Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country that it may always be a stronghold of peace and its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within its borders, health and happiness within its homes, strengthen the bonds of friendship among the inhabitants of all the lands, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. We praise you, O God, the source of peace.
Amen.
Shalom, tova uvracha, cher v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu, 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 aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Sim shalom, tova uvracha, cher v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu, aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael lamecha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha, cher v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu, aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha.
Silent prayer to God. And you know, as you go through the country, and you don't have a lot of quiet moments. Israeli tour guides are known for, we have so much to tell you, and we only have limited time to do all that. So it's a challenge. But here we are, here on top of Masada. Couldn't be a more beautiful day. You want to come in? When were you here? In the summer?
When was I here? I was here last year.
When?
Winter.
It was February.
Ah, it was winter.
Yeah.
If you come in the summer, Caroline, you can fry an egg on the sidewalk. You don't want to be. I come here sometimes in the summer. I try to stay in Jerusalem. It's cooler. But it's such a beautiful day and a great occasion. This rite of passage, as it's called, as you make this transition from childhood to adulthood. So I want you to think you're not going to remember everything that Ori told you a lot. You're not going to remember everything. It's impossible. When I take trips abroad, escorted tours from here, I don't remember from one day to the next. I'm older than you. But anyway, you're going to have certain memories that will always stand out in your mind from the trip that you're doing now, from this pilgrimage, and from your service, I hope. So I want you, as we take a moment of silent meditation, to reflect on what does it all mean? Okay? And where is it going to lead? How is it going to inspire you when you return home?
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום 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 שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
On page 8 at the top, please rise in place. Together, assembled at a mountain, our people, still bent from oppression, found you, found your Torah, found your truth, and embraced the destiny that has shaped worlds. Help us still to shape the world according to your will.
Help us to teach and to learn, to hear your word anew, and to find it in our
path to goodness and truth. Vayehi binsoa ha'aron vayomer Moshe, Kuma l'Adonai v'yafutzu oivecha v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, u'devar Adonai b'Yerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, Kedushato Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadlul Adonai iti, Uneramema Shemo Yachdav.
Havu, Godel, Leloheinu, Utnu, Kavod, LeTorah. Beit Yaakov, Lahu, V'Neilcha, Be'or Adonai.
Please be seated. Stay right here. Let's get the Torah ready for reading. And you've noticed, Caroline, I brought my own Torah to use with you this morning. I've had others before, probably for about 25 of my 31 years I've been officiating. This is by far the nicest. You notice it's also very small. The small ones are harder to find. And it's about 90 years old. Actually, I bought it in the year 2000, the millennium year. It's maybe close to 100 years old. And according to the shape of the letters, it's originally from Poland. I've had work, minor repairs and so on. So I don't know where was it during the Holocaust. You're going to go to the museum and, we don't know, but it'd be fascinating too. And especially Mom, Caroline, you notice the lovely cover. You've heard of Hadassah Hospital, Chagall Windows, 12 Tribes. This is the Zebulun tribe, so my wife and 2 daughters are quite busy 14 years ago as they did the beautiful needlepoint. So it's very compact and portable. I take it everywhere. It reminds your parents, have Torah will travel? Is that whatever? Have gun will, it's an old show, way before your time. Okay, bad joke. Now, this is a complicated reading. I think I mentioned to you yesterday as we briefly met. It's from the book of Leviticus. Leviticus is a manual, really. It prescribes how to offer the sacrifices. You know the name Kohanim, the priest, okay, of ancient days in the wilderness wanderings. You're going to be probably home for Passover, I imagine. You know, the Exodus from Egypt, which we celebrate every year. And there was a portable sanctuary, tabernacle, tent of meeting, where sacrifices were offered according to what the Torah says. You talked about the temple up in Jerusalem, first temple, Solomon's temple, Herod's temple, the whole 1,000-year history, which you probably, right, you talked about it a little bit. So consequently, this was an important part of the worship. It was the worship or the cult of those days. For 2,000 years we haven't had a temple. Orthodox Jews are still believe in the reestablishment of a temple. That's an interesting theological, religious issue. Reformed Jews don't even have it in the prayer book. Okay, so it's something you may have talked about or heard your rabbi talk about before, but it's part of Leviticus. So when we read the verses, and I think I suggested you just reread the English last night. You see, the beginning of the chapter, Caroline, talks about a person who has leprosy. Have you heard that? It's a skin disease. It's a very terrible skin disease. But apparently, and medical doctors have studied these very carefully. You ever hear of Hodgkin's disease?
Yes.
Well, that's what that was, apparently.
Really?
So when a person has Hodgkin's disease, he's separated from the camp, and there's a whole ritual, slaughtering of birds, dipping the birds in the blood, sprinkling the blood on the person. Then if it's gone, if it's better, then you bring them back into camp and you wait 7 or 8 days, and then he offers a sacrifice. So there's a whole ritual to purify the leprous or Hodgkin disease person, and then to bring him back into the fold, into the community. Now the thing is, the Hebrew word is sara'at, but there is no Hodgkin's diseases for walls, for what you're reading about. If a house has sara'at, if a house has some kind of you read about it. What does it say? A plague has appeared upon your house, and the plague has different streaks on the walls. I think you read that. I was reading in the commentary. Greenish or reddish streaks which go deep into the wall. There's got to be some kind of mold or rot or something like that. Your house doesn't have it, I don't imagine, right? Not too many houses today have sara'at. But if it does, then you have to go through a whole ritual to, so to speak, purify the house. And if it's really too bad, then apparently I think you have to tear the whole house down. You're not going to quite do that if you find some rot or mold, what do you call it, mildew or something in your basement. I don't think you're going to destroy you're going to tear down your whole house because it has mildew. But anyway, this is the portion that we're reading. And I think there is a lesson to be learned here, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So I'm going to open up the Torah here. Well, it's Canaan. It's one of my bar mitzvah previous gave me what do you call it? Yeah, he made me the yad. Whittled. There's a word for it. Whittled. I haven't used that word in 50 years. He made for me a nice pointer. I thought that was very nice of him. So, Mom, Dad, and Sammy are coming up to Caroline's right with your booklets to do the blessings. Move over to your left. Left. This way. Okay, it's right here. You hold it. I want to call everyone up. Call you by your Hebrew names, if you give me a moment. Okay, I should take it out here. Give me a second. Yamdu l'aliyah rishona l'sefer haTorah horei kalata bat mitzvah v'ha'akshala Avraham ben Moshe v'Dina Shendel Chaya bat Aryeh v'Ruth V'Shmuel ben Avraham v'Chaya. 1, 2, 3. Baruch
Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Adonai
Hamvorach
Hamvorach
le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe va'el Aharon lemor ki tavo'u el eretz Canaan asher ani noten lachem la'achuzah v'natati negatza bevet eretz achuzatchem uva asher lo habayit v'higid lakohen lemor Kanega Yer Ali Babayit.
Very nice. 1, 2, 3.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torat emet. V'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. But here we are in this beautiful setting, and we're honored to call Caroline to the Torah for her bat mitzvah aliyah. Tamod, tamod, tamod aliyah, shenit l'sefer haTorah, kalat bat mitzvah, Shoshana Rachel, bat Avraham, v'chaya chazak. Okay.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam
And
va'ed.
we repeat, Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Where did you leave off? Vitzivah, is that what you said?
Yes, right here.
Right there.
V'tziva hakohen ufinu et habayit beterem yavo hakohen lirot et hanega v'lo yitma kol asher babayit ve'ahar kein yavo hakohen lirot et habayit ve'ra'a et hanega ve'hine hanega V'kirot habayit sheka'arurot yarak rakot oh adam damot umar ehem shafal min hakir ve'yatza hakohen min habayit el petach habayit ve'hizgir et habayit shivat yamim.
Very nice. Okay. Baruch atah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Take a deep breath. Very nice.
Beautiful.
You all may be seated, including Caroline.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Caroline, I remember that you're an actress. And as an actress, I know that you know how to handle, what do they call it, actress jitters? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
I haven't used that word in 50 years either. So, very, very lovely. Did the reading very nicely. And as I was following along, when we were talking about this house that's inflicted with this whatever type of mold it has, God is saying, the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron saying, when you enter the land of Canaan, which I give you as a possession, and I inflict an eruptive plague upon a house. God is giving the plague. The question is why? You understand? God inflicts the plague on a house. I don't have a ready, Rabbi should have all the answers, but I don't. But it's an interesting question. You know, why would God, is it a challenge to human beings to overcome illnesses and diseases and so on? I mean, I don't know. But it's you know, it's not something that developed by itself, but I happened to notice, I didn't notice it yesterday or the day before when I was going over the passage, that God inflicts it. So that's a question, can I give her homework?
Yeah.
Sure.
Ask your rabbi. You know, if you were to ask your rabbi, I'm not serious, I'm not joking, there are commentaries in Hebrew and English to every word of the Torah almost. And you could, some commentator may, you know, take up that point and have an answer, if not more than one. So it's something that could be checked out. Since we're not having a seminar on Hodgkin's diseases or mold in the house, I don't have a ready answer, but I think it's interesting. Now, Caroline, the rabbis in later Jewish tradition, known as the Talmud, say the house affected by the plague never existed. Got that? Never existed. And it is not destined to exist. It was stated for the purpose of edification. You ever hear the word edification? How would we translate edification? To make you more knowledgeable, or something like that? Okay. And what he means by that, I'm not sure. It also could be checked up. It was for the purpose of making a point, maybe. Now, another commentator follows this view, but he adds that the plague teaches us that society should take notice of the first sign of misconduct, however small. Anything is wrong, it's like an investigative reporter on a newspaper. All these CNN reporters, etc., investigating bad things. You should take note of that. Just the same as a disease begins with hardly noticeable symptoms, and the disease can be stopped if detected in time, so a moral disease in society can be prevented from spreading if immediate steps are taken. Otherwise, it will spread throughout the community. You know, it's like you go to the doctor. You have something that's really bad. If you catch it in time, you're going to be healed. I was just thinking, my wife had 1 millimeter of breast cancer about 2-3 years ago. You know, it was caught. You know, she had to go through it was a whole thing. You know, hers was tiny, but, you know, she's well today. They caught it, thank goodness. Otherwise, the disease will spread throughout the community. There are various stages in the progress of the disease. Sometimes it is sufficient to isolate the occurrence. You ever hear of quarantine? Someone's really got something contagious, like in a hospital room or something. You can't go in unless you have a gown and mask and everything else. But it may continue to spread even after such isolation. And if that happens, if the disease can't be stopped, if there's no way out, then you have to eradicate completely all the affected parts. So I think this, morality in society, it's coincidental. Nothing is coincidental in this country. You ever hear the word beshert in Yiddish?
Yes.
It's all beshert. It's all supposed to happen. It's destined to happen. The word in Hebrew for for a leper, someone has leprosy or Hodgkin's disease, is metzorah. It starts at the beginning of the chapter. It's known as Parshat Metzorah, the Torah reading of Metzorah for this week's portion. Since it's very hard to speak about that, I told you I had to go I had to go into this to try to find something to talk about. So what do they take the word Metzorah and they divide it into syllables, and it becomes Motzi Lashon Hara. Metzorah, Motzi Lashon Hara. Someone who speaks libel or bad things about another person. So even the ancient rabbis had to understand this on a poetical second level, if that makes sense. Because to talk about lepers, even if this was written 3,000 years ago and hundreds of years later, how many lepers were there around? Maybe there weren't that many. So anyway, as a young bat mitzvah, you can help correct what's wrong in society. You can have a say, and if you don't have a say, I guess we're not doing our duty. So it's up to every individual to do something and to try to eliminate or to alleviate the problems that I talk about. So that's the message that we have here. So I hope there'll be some kind of continuation when you return home. Sometimes they do mitzvah projects. They go to soup kitchens and things like that. It's a mitzvah. It's a good deed. It's a commandment. Everything counts. So Caroline, please come in right in front of me for the blessing, the priestly benediction. From Aaron the high priest, the words that go back thousands of years from the Torah. You will gently bow your head. Yivarechecha Adonai v'shmerecha. May the Lord bless thee and keep thee. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May the Lord cause his countenance to shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. Caroline, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Lord lift up his face, his countenance unto thee, and grant thee shalom, and bless thee with peace, as we all say together. Amen. Now, you have to keep smiling. She has this great ability to do that, because your mom and dad and Sammy want to say something to you, and you want to come up one at a time and stand next to Caroline.
Okay, you ready?
Caroline.
On this your bat mitzvah day, in the holiest of lands to our Jewish people, we have a prayer for you. As you travel along the path that will be your life, may you walk on firm ground, with the wind at your back and the sun shining gently on your face. May your mind and body be strong, and may their work be guided by both the wisdom of your soul and the compassion of your heart. May you draw from the strength and wisdom of our tradition and those who came before you, and make them your own. May you have beautiful dreams which inspire you, and may your pursuit of those dreams be fulfilling. May your successes be many, and when you don't succeed, may you learn and grow from the experience. May you always give yourself the gift of learning something new. May you always remember to be empathetic towards all and appreciative of what you have. May you continue to meet life's challenges head-on with strength, pride, and confidence. May you have the courage of conviction and patience to fight for what you know to be right. May you always have good friends and be a good friend to others. May you always feel the love of your entire family. May your loyalty to your family and theirs back to you continue to bring you strength and protection. As you take your place as a bat mitzvah, may God grant you a long, healthy, happy, and peaceful life. Know that we love you, and that wherever life takes you, we're always here for you. We give thanks before you, God, who lives and endures, for making us your parents. We love you. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Go ahead. Okay. All right, so this is kind of a brother to sister kind of thing. Caroline, I pray for you to finally get asked out by JB. But more importantly, after he is your boyfriend, I pray for you to be happy and drama-free. Next, I pray for you to continue on your path with the great friends you know you have, and I hope your social life is always as easy as it is now. And finally, I pray for you to keep the same relationship with me that we've always had. Love you.
Amen.
Caroline's going to stay here, and you're going to take your seats. Okay. Sammy.
Yes.
I'm also JB, Jeff Behrman, but I don't know if I'm related to that JB, but whoever that JB might be. Just popped into my mind. A reading of Declaration of Faith, page 10. I am a Jew.
I am a Jew because the faith of Israel demands of me no denial of the mind. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel requires of me all of the devotion of my heart. I am a Jew because in every place where suffering weeps, the Jew weeps. I am a Jew because at every time wherein despair cries out, the Jew hopes. I am a Jew because the word of Israel is the oldest and newest. I am a Jew because the promise of Israel is the universal promise. I am a Jew because for Israel, the word is not completed. Humanity is completing it. I am a Jew because for Israel, men and women are not created. They are continually creating themselves.
And that's your challenge, to create a very beautiful Jewish life, inspired by what you've learned here in Israel. And I was just thinking, I hope someday one of those Broadway theaters that might have your name there. You never know. Life is full of surprises. It's all possible if you work for it. We rise in place for Aleinu, facing where Jerusalem is to the northwest. לשבח לאדון הכל, התגידו לילה יוצר בראשית, שלא נשאנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות אדמה, שלא שם חלקנו ככם, וגהר עלינו ככהמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר. והיין אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
קולות בלבב בנימה נפש יהודי הומייה ולפתי מזרח קדימה עין לציון צופיה עוד לא עבדה תקוותנו התקווה עד שנת אלפיים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון ירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון ירושלים.
Adonai Oz Lamo Yitain, Adonai Yavarech et Amo Shalom. May the Lord grant strength unto his people. May the Lord bless our people all over, and our guest of honor who did so nicely today, blessing Caroline with Birkat Shalom, the blessing of peace, as we all say together, Amen. Simon Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Simon Tovu, Simon Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Simon Tovu, Simon Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Simon Tovu, Ye'adu. Simon Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Simon Tovu, Simon Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Simon Tovu, Simon Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Simon Tovu, Ye'adu. Ye'adu, Ye'adu, Oleka Yisrael. Ye'adu, Ye'adu, Oleka Yisrael. David Melech Yisrael, Chai v'Kayam. David Melech Yisrael, Chai v'Kayam. Now, Caroline, as a newly minted bat mitzvah, like a newly minted coin or something, you know what your first duty is, responsibility as a young adult? Can I tell you what it is? Everyone hears? You have to give a kiss and a hug to everybody.
We'll take it.
I'll start. Mazel tov. You were so beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm so proud of you.
Bravo. Hava, Nakila, Hava, Nakila, Hava, Nakila, Venismecha, Hava, Nakila, Hava, Nakila, Hava, Nakila, Venismecha, Hava, Niranena, Hava, Niranena, Hava, Niranena, Venismecha, Hava, Niranena, Hava, Niranena, hava nirnena ונשמחה. uru אחים בלב שמח, uru אחים בלב שמח, uru אחים בלב שמח, uru אחים בלב שמח, uru אחים בלב שמח. מזל טוב.
You know the healing. Avotenu ve'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak ve'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel ve'Leah, Hu Yerapeh et, the name of Aryeh, Shemimachalato, Shehashem Yerapto bimcherav Yameinu bizman hakarov, ve'yizkel le'chaim arukim, ve'nagid kulanu Amen.
Amen.
He who, the God of our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, the patriarchs and the matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. We hope that He will provide a speedy recovery for your grandfather, whose name is Aryeh in the Hebrew, that he will have good health and return to a full and beautiful life, and may he have longevity and length of days, as we all say together. Amen. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.